right, well, this is Aaron Squire coming to you guys again this week. We've got episodes 79. I said 50, I don't know why, but 79, RavenHawk. Oh, so we got RavenHawk, you know, the youngest old person, I guess, or oldest young person on the show. He feels he's young at heart. He's here to join us on the show, but I'm pretty excited about the show. We've got a lot of things to talk about. We've got the interview with RavenHawk, and then we've got a YouTube giveaway to do. We got some sad community that RavenHawk has actually laid on me, so he's gonna talk about that. And then we've got some news about some of the upcoming tournaments, and then we're gonna do the deck build at the end of the show. And I haven't even chosen what we're gonna do yet, so it should be very exciting. So let's start off by talking to my new friend, RavenHawk. So are we calling you RavenHawk, and then you had a bunch of Z's or something after your name, or is it just RavenHawk? Is that what we're going with? Or
you can call me Raven. RavenHawk with all the Z's on there. I just put them on there because somebody's already taken the name, so I figured out
those shockers.
Yeah, well, you have to live with it.
Yeah. So talk to me about your stream or what you plan on doing. You're pretty new to the streaming community. You just started this past week, right? So
correct. I started Sunday. I started streaming, and pretty nervous about doing it, but people in the Hex community have made it to where I feel comfortable about doing it now.
Right.
Been doing it for a week, and I get a little laggy here and there on my stream, but I fix it, and it just does just great.
Right. Yeah, most of the time, I like when I first started at my last location, I had like a 3 meg upload speed, and that's pretty good for Hex, but doesn't really work for other games like World of Tanks or anything where basically all the pixels are changing on the screen at once. So most of the time, if you want something like that, you need, from what I read, you need to have it like between a 5 and a 10 meg upload speed, not download. Most of the time when they talk to you about that stuff, they're always talking download speed because that's what most of the public wants, you know, so they can steal their movies and things. But yeah, it's hard because like you got to ask them, and hopefully they have the right answer for you. But you know, I'm glad to see that that's working out for you.
Well, yeah, I'm actually streaming off of a laptop, and I don't have any issues. You know, like I said, I have a few lags. People tell me it's buffering too much, but I do a little tweaking here and there, and the stream runs just fine. And I've enjoyed doing this immensely.
Right. Well, hopefully, you know, maybe this can turn into something for you, and maybe in the future we'll do like some sort of a get RavenHawks a better desktop computer fund or something like that, so maybe you could do a Kickstarter or something. I don't know.
Yeah, that'd be pretty decent. But yeah, nice. I appreciate it.
So talk to me about how what kind of games you've been playing, like as far as to get you into card games. Like, what's your card game background there?
Actually, I got started when Blizzard came out with Hearthstone.
Oh, okay. A Hearthstone convert, people. They're coming over.
Yeah, and I dabbled a little bit in Magic the Gathering, but I just didn't get that feel for that particular type of card game. With Hearthstone, you know, you are doing something like Hex where you do have to build your decks, but it's much simpler. It's too easy. Here with Hex, you have to think about what kind of card deck you really want to play with, whether it be a mono ruby deck, a complete spider deck, Winter Moon. You know, and
there's a lot of different things, and it's been great actually. I thought that I would run out of ideas in some of the first seasons of the show because all I had was set 1 for something like 30 or 40 episodes, something crazy like that. And it was surprising that I kept finding things that I could build that were interesting, maybe not competitive, but you know, there's a lot to explore for sure. And it can only get better when we get the PvE content for sure. So
I'm looking forward to that so much.
Oh yeah, me too. Could you talk to me about how you like who introduced you to Hex or how you found it?
Actually, I have a lot of streamers that I normally watch, and I had seen the game for Hex, and I figure, well, it's probably going to be some off the wall card game. So I actually started watching Alucard's stream,
Oh yeah, he's a great entertainer.
He is. I mean, he explains every card, what it does, what you can do with it, and it puts it
So
like,
simply, yeah.
yeah, simply put, he knows what, he knows how to explain everything to a layman like me.
Right. Something I don't do.
No, but you do. When you build your decks, you're very thorough in your explanation of what you do.
Well, I do appreciate that.
But I mean, I've played World of Warcraft for 12 years. I've played Aeon. I've played
as many of us have
all these games, and it's like I get burned out.
Sure.
And then when I found Hex, it's like the community is so open. They welcome you. They're not like some of the other communities. Well, you got to go do this by yourself. You got to do that. And if you want help, the Hex community helps you. And you couldn't ask for a better community.
Right. At least right now. You know how it is. Like once things get much larger, then we start getting a little bit more trollish. But for now, I think things are great too. I think we're in a really good place, and I hope that we grow, but I hope that at the same time that we keep the quality up as much as possible.
Well, if they had more people like you and Alucard, Sithos, and other streamers of Hex, like what is it? Function.
Well, I mean, you got Sirius. Sirius is very good.
Yeah.
And
the motivation.
Yep, motivation is very good.
If you want to learn
Canadian
this game,
friend.
These are the people you need to talk to and listen to.
Right.
With your show and the way you build decks from scratch or whatever, I have learned so much, and so can other people once they come here. And I think the community is going to start growing more.
I hope so. I hope that, yeah, especially the lawsuit is getting cleared up last week was just such a breath of fresh air for everyone.
Oh yes.
So let's segue to a little bit of a more serious topic. So you told me this right before, and I'm actually kind of sad that I did not know what was going on. So just go ahead and tell me what was the thing going on.
There is a gentleman out here by the name of Draft Lord. He's also known as Kind Midas, and he has made such a humongous impact on the Hex community. And yesterday we found out that he has cancer, and it has become aggressive.
Right.
And so now he has to have moved into a hospice, and his son was able to secure a laptop for him so he can still at least be involved in the game and in the community until such a time. He's also written a letter to Corey explaining his unbelievable, belief that these people in the Hex community are so friendly, so adamant about making people love the game and love the community itself. And the letter that he wrote to Corey, I actually cried about it, because he's a vet just like I am.
Right.
And for something like this to happen, I know there are a lot of people out there that have maybe a relative or a friend that may have died from cancer or is going through it. Draft Lord has made that much of an impact that even the motivation had dedicated a whole entire stream to him. And I have the utmost respect for him, and I have the utmost respect for the motivation for doing what he did.
Yeah, that's pretty sad news. I think I've seen him a couple of times pop into my stream. I don't stream that much, but yeah, it's always sad to hear about a community member getting sick to the point of possible death, or probably very soon death. Obviously, I don't like to bring my faith too much into the show, but I'm Christian, and I do believe that there's an afterlife, and basically that there's one way to get there through Jesus Christ, that sort of thing. I don't want to go too much more into that, but if you guys want me to talk to you about that specifically, I would I would love to open myself, but I want to keep this more Hex focused and that sort of thing.
Well, I'm almost in the same boat as Draft Lord. At this point in time, I have a major heart problem. My heart is only pumping at 15 to 25%, due to a heart failure that I had. And yeah, I mean, I'm one foot in the grave and one on the banana peel, but you know what? I'm having fun while I'm still here.
Sure. Sure. Okay, well, let's lighten things up a little bit and move on to some of the Hex updates. So starting off with, let's see, it's this one. Let's go ahead and flip over to the show screen here, and hopefully things will look mostly good. And there we go. That's a much better. I'm not sure why it did that on the other screen. Now you look much better, much more reasonable. Your head was like massive in the other screen. I don't know. I should have done a better job of fixing that.
I look like an alien anyway.
So we've got a PvE card preview. So I'm just going to play parts of this, and then we'll talk about it. I don't think that you'll be able to hear it, Ravenlord. So so I'll probably just talk about it, and then you can kind of.
Okay. Hi everyone. Todd here from Sound Design to bring you an update to our upcoming PvE campaign. This is just one little peek into a much larger update to Hex. First, we wanted to highlight a couple cards that will expand upon gameplay. Because we're venturing into PvE, a lot more design space opens up to the designers in the sense that we can enhance the overall experience because the computer can keep track of everything. Our first example of a card that's coming to our PvE update is Ardent Recruiter. Now, this card is a reward card and is a great example of how PvE will bring more focus on factions and other aspects about the characters you create for PvE. Everything from dialogues to battle encounters and rewards can be different based on factions, races, and classes. Specifically, we're going to focus on factions with this first card. Ardent Recruiter is a great reward card for a player who chooses to create a character in the Ardent faction. Playing this card would lower the shard cost of all Ardent troops by 1.
So the Ardent Recruiter is that last guy that we just saw, and he's going to reduce the cost of just Ardent troops by -1. He's a 1/3, which puts him at a pretty good body for having to deal with a lot of those Ruby troops that have that 2 front ends, but like have a low end back end, the 1 toughness. I think he's going to be a great troop for you to have in your PvE decks and to build around at 2 cost and 1 diamond threshold. He's really easy to play and still splash other things. Yeah, I think it's going to be a great troop to have.
Yeah, it definitely will be, and I'm chomping at the bit to get a hold of it.
Yeah. I also like the artwork on it. I've always liked a lot of knights and that sort of thing. So yeah, just wanted to kind of highlight that. Let's look at the other card that he's going to highlight.
The shard cost of all Ardent troops by 1. Our second PvE card is Ethereal Healer. I really like this card because it shows us expanding into more design space in a digital trading card game. Normally, a card like this would cause confusion as to why a player is starting with more health in PvP. However, only you really need to know why you have more health. Thanks to Ethereal Healer, you start the game with 1 extra health for each of these cards you have in your deck. Lastly, we wanted to reveal what...
So yeah, and then they're going to show you the way the planet looks for the new Entrath and some of the areas and that sort of thing. It just kind of shows you the highlights of where you can go on Entrath. But the Ethereal Healer seems pretty interesting. Also, it would be nice to see an effect like this come to PvP, but a 3... cost 3/2 fly, or well, it's not a flyer, but it's a life drain troop that starts you out with more health. Maybe a little bit overpowered for PvP. I think something like this. Go ahead.
I think it would be a little bit overpowering because I mean they're gonna, make it that strong. People are really gonna get really itchy about why.
Right. Yeah. I mean, because if you start with 4 of these, you're going to start at 24 health, and it kind of throws off the math of a lot of other decks like your typical Ruby decks, and really just kind of hoses that whole like game plan. I think a little bit too much. I don't see PvP being able to start off with more health than 20, but I could be wrong. So we'll see in the future if we get something like this. But if it was going to be something like this, if I were to balance this card, I would say 3 for... or it might be more like 4 for a 2/2 that has that life drain, and then you get to add 1 health at the beginning of the game. That would seem more balanced to me.
That would definitely be a more balanceable player, because I mean it's just like you said, come out and you already got 24 health. It throws everybody else's deck off. It's like, what do we do to counter it?
Yeah, I mean versus control, they don't really care anyways because it's just another troop to them, but. There's not a lot of control going around besides like Blood X control decks these days. So Anything else you want to talk about with any of those cards we revealed, or?
I want them in my deck now.
All right, so let's talk about the rock paper shotgun article that they had. So the main things that I pulled away after reading through the article was, just they give Hex a nice positive spin. Of course, they still have to write to an audience as if they didn't know anything about Hex at all. But two of the things that came up that I thought were really important were that they mentioned that the lawsuit was over, and so this is going to hit a very wide audience. Obviously people like me have a very small audience that's very niche in the Hex community, people that are already interested in that, whereas rock paper shotgun, seeing that's going to be very important because not everyone's paying attention to Hex 24/7, and they won't know that that's gone in, and people with cold feet hopefully will have started to try out Hex now, and we can expand the community a little bit more.
With the lawsuit being finally taken care of, I've heard and I've seen that a lot of people were hesitant to come into Hex because of the lawsuit. They figured, well, it's not, they're going to get kicked out or they're going to have to shut shop. When in actuality, everything was settled, everything is fine, and I'm seeing a little bit of an influx of new players coming in, and which is great because then the community can start growing and watch. Like I said before, watch you, Alucard, and other people on how to play the game properly, and you can do it free to play. I mean, it's up to you if you want to spend money to get into the game, but if you aren't able to, such as me, we do it free to play, and I enjoy doing it that way. I earn what I got to get.
Right. The other thing that I thought was really important that came up in the article was, and I wrote it down, it was so important that I can't even remember it, it was the learning algorithm that they mentioned. So basically it's talking about how the AI right now is kind of like learning different things. And so from my standpoint, from what I know a little bit about programming, basically if you had a computer and it can make an infinite number of decisions. So let's say that there was a computer that's going to play checkers. We'll keep it simple. Keep it so it can move any of the pieces in any way, and then it's playing against human players. It's going to randomly move pieces, but then it's going to store that information in a database, and then it's going to know. It's going to keep track of when those things were good that it did, that helped it win games, and when those things were bad that it did, that made it lose games. And so by doing that, it's going to take that information and apply it to its next game. That's how it learns.
I don't know if you've ever seen the movie War Games.
Yeah, I have. Yeah, it's a classic Matthew Broderick.
To me, that's what they're talking about, the AI, because in War Games, the computer learned how to play tic-tac-toe, but it also learned how to play war. And it gave the odds of who would win and who would lose.
Right. I mean, and there are ways that it can crunch numbers, and it's never going to be perfect. There's actually, if you look up on YouTube later on, an algorithm type thing. It's called Play Fun. It's basically a guy that designed an algorithm to push random buttons on the Nintendo controller, and he has it play Super Mario Brothers and Zelda and other things. And it's pretty intense because he basically lets it run for days, and eventually it actually starts playing the levels reasonably well.
Yeah, it learned his techniques and how he played and played it against him.
Right. So yeah, that was the two most interesting things there. We are running a little bit low on time, so I'm not going to spend too much time on these VIP deck lists, but there's a ton of them. For the most part, when you're running sealed, I feel like it really kind of depends on the sealed pool that you get. You can just you have to take your cards and look at them and be like, which are the two strongest shards? And then sometimes it can be a huge distractor seeing a huge bomb because there's not necessarily, just because you have like an Angel of Dawn or something like that, or like I guess Vampire Princess, doesn't mean you should be playing that deck unless you have the cards to support it, because it doesn't mean you're going to draw it. It's only one card in your 40-card deck. However, saying that, I had some interesting things that I saw come up over and over again, which was Vampire Princess. Wrathwood Large was a big player, I think, in a lot of these decks.
Yeah.
Death Mask Assailant, which is basically the Death Mask can give anything else where it can't be blocked unless you it has that much power or less. So you basically throw it on a really big troop, and now you have evasion. You keep pushing damage. Iljune's Parade, where it creates 2 2/2 elephants, and then you throw the gem on it, and you usually throw the major gem where when they deals damage to your opponent, all your troops get +1/+1, so they have to deal with 2 of those troops with that.
Yeah.
Duplicitous Duke, I had somebody use this against me in the first round. I just posted that video today, and that was pretty brutal because he had his Duplicitous Duke went from 2/2 up to 4/4 with a couple of buffs.
Wow.
And Swift Strike. So he had basically 2 of those coming at me every turn, and that was not, yeah, I couldn't deal with that. Tempestuous Blade Master is another one that I kind of like to highlight here because it's not that good in Constructed when you can have all the rares you want, but in a limited format like this, it's a reasonably good 4/4 solid, you know, hasting troop that comes in there and just does damage right away. I saw a lot of complaints about Titania's Majesty. I only saw one of them when I went through some of these decks, but again, I didn't go through all of them. And then, of course, Crocosaur. Go ahead.
Yeah, I only saw one, just like you.
I did see a lot of complaints about it when I was playing the tournament, though. And then Crocosaur, of course, was in a couple of decks as well, and that's an amazing 2-for-1. Or actually, it's more like a 3-for-1 because you get the body and you get to kill typically 2 troops with it. Pretty amazing. So that was what I really noticed from there. Did you notice any cards I left out, or is there anything you want to bring up?
No, that's basically what I've seen inside what their decks are all about, and it's TM is very, very you know, the people want it back in, and one way or the other, I think they're going to find a way to put TM back into the decks.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, yeah. People love Titania's Majesty. One last thing, I guess that I kind of left out was Spiritbound Spy decks are also a popular choice with your Madam Anna. They've been talking about this a lot on the Threshold podcast, and the fact that Spiritbound Spy says when it dies, transform it into a phantom and put it into play. It doesn't say revert it and put it into play, which is kind of a big deal. You know, because that means it keeps all of its buffs. So anything you throw on it, it just keeps them.
Right.
And then the other one, the Ethereal Caller does the same thing, but it does it to a troop in your graveyard.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it for that. I think we need to press on, though, because we got to get to this deck build. Anything else you want to bring up before we move on, though?
No, you covered every base.
Let's talk about the tournaments that are coming up. So I just saw this one today, the Mistlord Cup, open from Hexagonal. I'm not sure. I don't know who these people are or exactly who they are, but they are doing a tournament. It's free to play. It looks like it's trying to be a lower end tournament where you have limitations, which are going to mean that all these people with all the rare cards are going to have. It's supposed to even out the play field for people that can't spend a lot of money. I guess they had some GameForge support. It's basically budget set 2 and set 3. You can only use set 3 champions, and then you have a certain amount of money to spend, and they have you have to use Battlefy, and then you use this price list, which is just a spreadsheet. So they aren't even really pushing an agenda, because a lot of times when we saw this in the past, people were trying to push people so they saw that they had a store to sell in-game hex cards, which is not illegal, by the way. That is something that we saw as like a little bit of an agenda, but I'm not seeing really an agenda here. It just seems like a good group of people that are putting this on. So if you don't have a lot of money, but you still want to play tournaments, and the 5 shards is maybe, even though it's free, you're kind of off-put by it because you know you're probably going to get owned by people that have, you know, play sets that is 4 of each of the good rare cards in their decks. Maybe try this one out.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm planning on doing. I'm going to give it a whirl, and you know what? Go in there and have fun, whether I win or lose. It's the experience that I want.
Yeah, so I'm going to go ahead and throw that thread in there. Hey, what's going on, Ant Evil? Yeah, it's been a while. So the next one is speaking of the 5 shards, we've got the 5 Shards Wild Cup coming up.
Yep.
And that is going to be next weekend. And the restrictions on this, again, are you have to have at least 20 troops in your deck. They all have to have the same troop type. So if you have humans, they all have to be humans. But if you have like one guy that's just a rogue, but he's not a human, even though it looks like a human on the card, it can't go in your deck. So they all have to have at least one trait in common. They can have other traits, but they have to have that one trait in common.
Yeah.
Then you have to have an additional 5 on your reserves.
Yeah, you're going to play spiders. Got to be all spiders. If you, like you said, humans, got to be strictly humans, no ifs, ands, or buts about it.
Yeah. But that should be very exciting. I haven't signed up for this yet, but I should be clear to play this tournament next week. Top 8 will happen on Sunday if you do make it to the top 8. If you lose 2 rounds, you pretty much can't make it into the top 8, just so you're aware. 3 rounds, you definitely aren't going to make it, but you could top 16 with 2 losses. There's a chance. But that's pretty much it. And they did say they're going to do all their door prizes after round 2, so you know, if you do lose early, you have a chance to get out, and you don't have to worry about sticking around forever to get those door prizes. So it should be a good time. And there are a ton of tournaments. I believe the ESL is still going on Sundays for us North Americans, and then for Europeans, it's still going on Saturday nights. And then on top of that, there's the asynchronous, and I haven't even really been doing that. Plus, Hex is still doing that $100,000 tournament, which is going to be kicking off pretty soon. So if you want to play tournaments, they are out there for you to play. I mean, you could be playing tournaments pretty much like every day of the week, and then the major ones, you know, 3 or 4 times a week. It just seems like it's a great time to be playing Hex, especially if you're a tournament player like me.
Oh yeah, I mean it's an awesome time to be into the Hex game. And if I could also plug in, ESL does have a one-on-one ladder matches that they do.
Right.
I'm involved in that, and I'm ranked number 5, believe it or not.
Oh wow! So
yeah, that surprised me.
That's pretty nice. That's got to feel pretty good.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, some people. I mean, there are a lot of people that are on there that don't show up for the one-on-one, and
they pay out. Like, let me tell you, I played one of them, and I happened to make it to like the semifinals, the top 4, and they paid me fairly quickly. They paid out fairly quickly. Let's look at one thing before we do the deck build, though.
Okay.
I got to go over to my YouTube channel. So let's see. youtube.com/AaronSquire. And we got to see who it was that we got to get some of these people on the last episode. Let's see who actually posted, who's going to try to win this convocation pack, and we'll do it like I typically have done, where I open it to the viewers. So it looks like we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and some people didn't post their in-game name, so I'll have to ask them for it. I'm going to roll this dice in front of me, and we're going to see. So make sure you're posting on the YouTube. That's all I'm saying. Like, if you haven't made it this far in the YouTube episode, I guess that's on you. But number 1 again, that means Alurin Grav. So I'm just going to post, we'll just say, hey, please get me your IGN for your convocation pack. And let's see what he won, though. It's on the stream here, so you can see that next week. But if he doesn't claim it like within a week, it's going to go back in the pool, just so you guys know. I mean, you got to pay attention. Just saying. I mean, we can't just have the stuff lingering out there. Let's see here. Let's see. It's going to be... Oh man, these things are so hard to open for some reason. Oh man, that was very violent. I can't even read what that is. Let's... Lantern of the Cloud Queen. The Cloud Queen. Instead, have when this enters play, create a storm cloud and put it into play. Wow, that's a pretty nice piece of PvE equipment. I'm not sure how much that goes for, but you know, you could typically always sell this stuff off. So there is that. And stick around after the show, because we will do a draft giveaway and a convocation pack giveaway at the end of the show as well. So what kind of deck should we build, Raven? What are you itching to build? Like, we're going to have to build for this upcoming Hex CCG.
How about a Necro?
A Necro. So all Necros.
Yeah.
All right, let's see what kind of Necro... Because we're trying to build for the Wild Cup. That's
right.
Really what we're going to do. And one of the things I really like about the Necrotic is that they get that shard where they can play all the different shards, right? So that's definitely one that I want to play in here. I want to play like a lot of... Yeah, I want to play the Sepulchre of Cryptdust, and I want to play it so like I have a lot of one single shard stuff. So like, for instance, this Paladin of Nagan is double... diamond threshold, which is a problem, because if I play the Sepulchre and I already have diamond in play, I can't get a second diamond. So I do need to keep that in mind when I'm building this deck, especially if I want to play that Cryptdust, and I really do. So some sort of 5-color control. He's saying Craygasm. I'm not sure what Cray is. That like Cray? I'm not. I'm not sure what we're getting at. Is that maybe okay? So we can just start putting in things that we've seen do really well in a lot of other formats, like the Spiritbound Spy does really well. The Subtle Striker does pretty well.
Yeah.
Sacrifice Snar's Troop. I'm not really feeling the Warlock. I mean, we're probably going to be either main Blood or main Diamond. We're probably actually main Diamond with this, so we can get maybe some fixing within Diamond as well.
Right. Diamond sounds decent.
I do like this guy somewhat, although he's a little expensive at 4. He does give things lethal. Sepulchra Stalwart. I like this guy, but I'm not sure how much, so I'm just going to put 1 in there right now. Psionic Alkalite, not really a fan. Necrotics you control get +2/+2. That seems pretty amazing for a deck that's trying to play every single shard. Paladin Necropolis is pretty amazing for the life drain, so maybe we can kind of go push things in that life drain.
Okay.
And there's an alternate art one that's the same card. This guy is just a vanilla troop, so obvious, skip right over that guy. Necropolis Tablet lets you just draw a card if you got all 5.
Right.
But I don't like at a cost of 6. I feel like there's better card draw that we can get than that. Seems pretty bad for what we're trying to do. Like if we were trying to do this, maybe we might try to do some sort of 5-sharded dwarf or something, so you can like get it out quicker. I'm not sure what I would do, or maybe a dwarf deck that had a plan that could build this. I don't know. Seems pretty bad. See, with Senators play, revert target troop would cost 3 in the graveyard, then put that troop in your hand. I guess it gives me troops back, but we don't really have a lot of things that cost 3 or less. I'm not really seeing this guy. It's a 2/2 body for 4. No. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of that one.
No, I'm not a fan of it at all.
Midnight Shepherd though is pretty ridiculous. That's an easy in.
Oh yeah.
That's an easy in. Bringing things back from the dead, and it costs 2. This dies put in your hand. It gets cost +2. This guy's okay, but he doesn't really do like what we've seen the spider do.
Right.
You know. What's that spider called? Inquisitor. Yes, Xenos Inquisitor. This is no Xenos Inquisitor because like he keeps coming back, but I mean maybe we could put him on the reserves if we're running against some sort of extinction deck, but I'm not really seeing.
Yeah, I just stick him in a reserve deck.
Mistlord I kind of like, although he's double diamond, but he's very evasive. It's like if your opponent were to extinction you, or if you played extinction main deck, you could actually, if you had 8, I mean that's a lot to ask, but if you had 8, you could void it and then extinction, and then it would come back into play at the end of the turn, which leaves you with a positive board state of still having a troop on the board. Or you could always void it in response to any type of removal, and the removal will not be able to target it anymore. So seems like a pretty decent card, at least. 3/3 body's nothing to sneeze at.
Yeah. It's alright.
I like the Lixil, of course. It was maybe a 3 of, because it is a unique. Also, something that's different with Hex compared to other games is that Invincible absorbs all that damage. So crush damage doesn't go over Invincible; it just absorbs it all. So if that's a big deal, plus we probably won't see any Crocosaurs or anything in this format, but we may see a decent amount of removal, especially in Orcs.
Oh yeah,
and this just prevents it all once you get all those shards into play. Having 3 toughness is kind of a big deal versus Orcs.
Yeah.
Grim Harvester is another one I think is a kind of a sleeper. I really like this guy. I was playing him in a spirit deck where I could sacrifice things, and the nice thing is like, let's say your opponent's at 5 life and you've got 7 troops on the board. Well, then it's just basically an auto win when it goes to your turn, because you probably have 5 resources and you just sacrifice each troop, deal a point of damage to your opponent's face, and then you win, right?
Yep.
Seems pretty amazing.
Yeah.
So that's, and then I guess there's an alternate art of that one too. It's not seeing as much play as I would have thought.
Well,
what do you think about him? What are you gonna say?
Yeah. Yeah, I think you can put him into the deck.
Well, I mean, we're doing the typical thing that I do, where I just throw as much stuff as I can, and then we see what we like and what we don't like. Forgotten Monarch's another one that hasn't seen that much play, but what we could do with this guy that's kind of cool is you give him evasion, either flying, or we could give him ruby, so he can't be blocked except for by diamond troops.
Right.
And then we could switch that in between games. Plus, because we're playing all 5 shards, this guy could be free. And then typically what I like to do is I give him the diamond shard, where when he deals damage to my opponent, he buffs my field. So evasion plus that seems pretty amazing.
I like that. I like that a lot.
If you had to, you could throw where he isn't in, where he's not targetable between rounds. The only issue is we're probably going to see orcs in this format, so the 2 back ends, it makes him basically killable by most of the burn spells in that deck. That's the only issue I have with him.
Yeah, you're right. But he's still good.
He's
something you may want to hang on to.
Gemsoul Feeder seems decent. I mean, giving that life drain is something else. Maybe like a Forgotten Monarch that has evasion, that keeps getting health, or that keeps getting bigger every turn.
Right.
Maybe pretty good. Eye of Lixil, of course, is another one that prevents a lot of damage. So Eye of Lixil plus Lixil herself, you could do a lot of defensive things with this deck.
Yeah.
She's
a good defense.
You're just gonna sit there and just wait. I'm not too sure about the Duplicitous Duke. Double Ruby threshold. I guess one of the neat things is you can shift his ability onto some of these that don't take damage, like Eye of Lixil, or maybe you could put it on Forgotten Monarch or Lixil herself. I'm not sure though. I think if you shift it onto a troop with unique, that it's not. I think it will void the other troop, or it might void the original troop. So you might have to do some testing with that. But I'm not really seeing Duplicitous Duke in this deck, even though we do have a lot of shifting. What do you think about him? Do you like him? Do you not like him?
I like him. I like him a lot.
So would you throw one in here, or what do you think for now?
Oh yeah, I'd definitely throw one in.
Okay. I do like him with Swift Strike. We also haven't picked a champion yet, so we could probably
that's going to be tough to figure out what champion is good enough to run the deck.
I do like Death Mask in here. Maybe as a 2 of, because he is more of like a buff that's just going to help us get damage through. Oh, it doesn't work with uniques. Okay, well that's good to know. Peace Tinker he's got my back. Another good combo is your typical Deep Gaze Alkalites with the shifting. On top of that, you got your Deep Gaze Champion. Whenever a power is shifted, each troop gets +1/+1, so that could be a thing.
Yeah.
And then we've got our Deep Gaze Disciple. Power +1 for each troop you control. Whenever a power is shifted onto a troop you control, this just gets +1/+1. This guy is okay, maybe as a 1 or a 2 of.
Yeah.
You don't want to have too many of these guys that need to take the buffs, or that so we're kind of like trying to figure out if we want to go all shift, if we want to do that, or maybe we want to go maybe damage prevention, but the shifting may actually be better for us. We'll see.
It looks like shifting would be a lot better for us at this point in time.
Yeah, it looks like there's a lot more stuff that works with that.
Yeah.
These guys might be an okay reserves card because they do revert target troops. You get a decent body out of it, but it's kind of a late card. I mean, I guess that's kind of when you want to revert things anyways. It's kind of a little bit later in the game.
Yeah, you don't want them too early.
Right.
I love that Deep Gaze champion. I mean, the card itself.
Corrupt Harvester, we've seen actually see play in Blood X decks in the past. It's another one that like people are like, well, I got Vampire King, but I just want more life drain, and Corrupt Harvester does that very well. Can't be blocked already, and then if we could throw maybe a buff on it, maybe like Duplicitous Duke or something like that, it could do a lot of work for us, couldn't it?
Yep, and it'd do perfect.
Chimera, Guard the Fallen, pretty decent also. Again, we got to be wary, again, I think of the 2 back end. Too many of the 2 defense cards are going to be very weak against the burn spells. Speaking of which, we should probably put some burn spells in the deck, as long as we have Ruby. And we probably need to pick some shards that are going to be like our main shards here. Looks like we've got about 81 cards. We've got about 15 minutes left to finish out this deck, and 4 of those are resources. I'm seeing mostly diamond and blood cards already. It seems like most of the other cards are there to kind of I think I lost my train of thought, but yeah, but basically we don't really have any sapphire, and there's absolutely no wild, so we know that we really don't want to have sapphire or wild actions. So we can look at some of the I think I want diamonds, because diamonds is really good at fixing five shards.
Yeah, the diamonds are excellent at doing that.
So let's go ahead and we're going to go shardless, ruby, diamond, and blood, and make sure we're looking at PvP cards. And I think I just want to mostly look. We've already looked at it. We've got all our troops in there. Let's just look at basic actions, quick actions, constants. I can look at artifacts and basically everything but troops. And we do need a champion still, so maybe we'll put the champions on there. So, what kind of things would support this deck well?
Well,
possibly tribal warfare would be an interesting one as an end game, but I think that honestly it's nice enough just to have that the 2/2 Swift Striker that we can sacrifice guys to do that. So that job's kind of already been taken. Let's see, what else could we put?
It's just a matter of what champion are we going to use.
We could play Soul Marble in here. That could be a very strong card in here. Solitary Exile. We'll probably actually run Odo, the Shift champion, if we decide to go Shift. I think I really want to play Diamond.
I like diamonds. It looks really sweet with the diamonds.
We also have this Shard Ward. That would be a decent reserves card, I think. It can prevent any of the shards that we need it to. So let's go ahead and do that. Yeah, and I think this permanently prevents it. It just says prevent it. So usually, like, they've gone away from saying permanent or add this ability or whatever that they used to. Like, if it doesn't say until the end of the turn, it's permanent, as far as I know. So I believe that this is permanent. So this would be a great one to have in your reserves. Something you could pop on some of those cards that are trying to get removed by specific removal cards. Or the problem is it only prevents damage, I believe. Or maybe it doesn't. I'm not sure if it just prevents damage, if it just fizzles cards that are trying to target.
Okay.
It's not permanent. It's just that turn.
They're saying it's not permanent.
Okay. Well, it's a good thing the motivation's here to cover my back on that one. Rockcast is seeing a lot of play, especially versus that, but it's got that double blood threshold, so I know that I'm really into that. Repel is kind of a big card. It may take us a little bit of time to get online with this deck. This isn't going to be overly aggressive. If we expect to see a lot of orcs, maybe 2 of these main deck and then 2 in the reserves.
Yeah.
I see this mostly as a defensive card for like control decks. I think there are other better things that we could do. I don't want to play Ragefire because it's got the double ruby threshold, and we kind of talked about that. We touched on that.
Yeah.
Martyr is okay for us, but I like playing Martyr these days in either one of 2 decks: control deck, which is not what we're playing because we're playing tons of troops, and then some sort of token deck. I'd like Martyr maybe as a one-of if I'm going to play it at all, but I think I would just throw it in the reserves.
Yeah.
It feels like it's a card that it wants to be played in some sort of like Shinhair tokens or some sort of Spirit tokens deck. I did play it in Spirit tokens, but even then I only played like 2. And that felt about right. But the biggest deal that I have with Martyr is, like, a lot of times I'll need to like kill like a Crocosaur with it. And I'll buff my opponent's field, and then all their elves get even more out of hand. So yeah, that's my biggest deal with it lately.
Yeah.
As I've been playing with it, but I'm sure some other people are, could probably disagree with me on that one and say, oh yeah, it's a must 4 of all the time. Immortal Tears is a maybe in this deck, just because we may need it to get some of the other shards, but yeah, I don't think I'm going to play that one. Hex Geode I don't think we need necessarily. I do feel like we need fixing. I almost want to run the Diamond Fixer where I can pick any shard. I think that might be the one to pick. Extinction's another one we could probably just throw in the reserves. I'm not sure if I'm going to play it or not. It feels like that's not the best thing to play with this type of more of a aggro aggressive type of a deck. More mid range actually, probably.
Yeah, I would think I would seriously consider putting the Extinction into reserve.
I like Crackling Rot main deck.
Yeah,
and Crackling Bolt and Crackling Rot could be main deck. Nice removal, 2/3 removal, and then you've got, of course, Burns. We'll probably put in some Burns. Burns just one of those staples that just goes in like pretty much if you're playing Ruby, you're gonna play like between 2 and 4 Burns. It's kind of like it's almost become just a rule because there's a lot of X2s that need to be taken care of as soon as they hit the field, even in this format, especially with Orcs.
Yeah, is it going to be a decent deck against an Orcs deck, though?
Yeah, good question. Let's see. I don't know if I... So the Diamond card gives me a Shard right away that I can play, and it ramps me. I could play Adaptable Infusion Device in here for fixing. Maybe. And draw a card later. Heatwave. Yeah, we could play Heatwave in here, but then we would have to make sure that we have a lot of X3s. But I'll think about it. We'll think about it. That's not actually a bad idea, I don't think. I mean, you know, maybe more Ruby Diamond. I'm just trying to figure out what kind of fixing we want to use here.
Yeah.
I don't have a lot of time either. Shardcall is the one. So the difference between that one and this one, create a standard resource of your choice. I mean, this is actually like kind of, it's not ramp because it doesn't ramp you the turn that you put it into play, but it does fix you and it gets you where you need to go. It only costs 1. I mean, I kind of like it in this deck for fixing.
Right.
The only thing is it doesn't affect the board state. It's not going to get you ahead on board state. It's basically just a fixer is what it is. So I like Shardcall in here. I think it'll be okay. I think if we can run Shardcall in here, I think I would rather run that than the Adaptable Infusion Device.
Yeah, I'd definitely run the Shardcall. I mean, you can't lose with that. Oh.
So let's really think about this. So we've got 106 cards. Actually, I need to put some resources in here. So let's go ahead and put some diamond. I need to get shards up. Is there a way to reset? Reset filters. Diamond. Shard. I guess we do have these double fixers as well, so we can throw those in there. If it's gonna, I might need to refresh the page. Yeah, let's go and refresh.
Did we decide what champion we're gonna run?
I think we're running Ovo in here.
Okay.
I mean, it just seems like we're gonna basically run a lot of shift in the deck.
Yeah. It looked like Ovo would be a prime candidate for that.
I mean, you know, he's already doing really well in limited play.
Right.
Diamond Ruby. And then we'll put some diamond shards in there. We'll figure this out. I may have to do the shards later because we've got about 8 minutes left in the episode. We did start a little bit late.
Yeah.
But we still will end on time. Let's see here. There's those blood shards. And what did I say? Ruby. So we may actually be able to also cut out a shard here, although I do like having the destructive power of both Ruby and Blood in the same deck. So 126 cards, here we go, 7 minutes. Let's see if we can make a deck. So Soul Marble's okay, but we got to build up to it. That's fine for now. Spiritbound Spine is good. I think we're just going to go with a lot of things where, obviously we're playing Ovo, so I'm going to put them up there later. We've already decided on that. Solitary Exile's got double threshold, so probably a lot of these things with double threshold. We'll move this to the reserves, I think. This is where I get to go really fast, right?
Yeah. But I like watching you do it because you're so damn good at it.
So these guys have 3 in the back end. We have to decide if we're going to, like, how many 3 back ends we could actually deal with and be okay.
Like,
so the cool thing about Heatwave is it actually doesn't affect Lixil and it doesn't affect what's it, the other Lixils.
What if
all
we
of
took
the Lixils. It doesn't affect any of the Lixils as long as we have that shard in play, and we would because we would have Heatwave in play. So I think that's actually maybe a different direction we could go with this. But so there's two different directions we could go. We could play Heatwave and all the Lixils, and then maybe less shifty type stuff, or we could play more shifty type stuff, which actually might push us more towards 3 shards. But I think I like to try to do the Lixil route, which would actually change our champion. So I think what I'm going to do is I'll probably build 2 decks out of this. I'll build a second one later, but I kind of want to move into that Lixil direction. So let's try that.
Okay.
So that means that basically all the X2s exit our deck. The Spirit-Bound Spy is okay because he'll come back and we can still throw things on them. The Soul Marble's okay because it'll buff our stuff maybe out of range that we want to keep. Let's take the Shadowblade Assassin down to 1 because he's more of like a buff anyways. He's got that lethal. Shardcall can stay. Stalwart, I think I'm just going to get rid of that because it's just steadfast and that's not really that amazing. Mistlord I still like. Paladin I still like. Prodigy.
You think the Grim Reapers, the Grim Harvester is good enough for the deck, or
Grim Harvester?
Yeah.
This guy?
Yeah.
I like him, but I don't think he does enough for us with the 2 back end. Yeah, I don't think that's...
Okay.
We don't have a lot of... He's much nicer when we were playing a lot more like tokens, so maybe spirit tokens would have been better. Duplicitous Duke that comes out. Deepgate's Disciple can stay for now. Deepgate's Alkalite, though. So now we're kind of just moving away from the shift. The whole shift idea is pretty much what we're doing at this point. A lot of the shift stuff's coming out. We're doing a lot more maybe control type of a game plan here is what I'm seeing going on right now with some of the choices we're making.
Yeah.
Take the Crackling routes down. A lot of our stuff is in that 3-point range, and so that's the stuff we want to play with.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that.
You can see how like the simple decision of Heatwave plus Lixil was like, that's pretty cool, but it forced us into a lot of other decisions with the deck. Maybe the Midnight Shepherd down to 2 because you just basically wait to play him type of thing. We don't want to necessarily play him right away. We're at 89 cards now. How many resources do I have? 8, 12, 13, 14, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 20, 24. So I have 24 shards in here. I'm going to take it down to 23 just for now, just so I can get a good feel on how many cards I need to cut. We're at 88 cards. Soul Marble. And plus we can count the shard calls as kind of like half a shard.
Right.
I still like having Soul Marble in there. I almost want to pump that up to 2 because this feels more like control.
I would go ahead and pump it up to 2.
Deep Gaze Champion of Power is shifted, so we're still getting rid of a lot of things that are shift because we don't have a let's see how much stuff even shifts anymore. Now that we've had to pare down, we basically have Mistlord. That's the only thing that shifts.
Yeah. And
the Shadowblade Assassin, and we only have 1 of those. So I think we can just dump all of our shift stuff, which may make us want to dump our Spirit-Bound Spy as well. If we want to go shift, we go in a different direction. We'll probably pick another champion for this deck, not Ovo, because we're no longer playing the shift stuff. I still like Crackling Bolt, Crackling Rot. It's good. Let's look at what our curve is doing. Curve looks okay. So we want to have like this curve that's kind of like an up and down type of thing going on. That's kind of what we want. We've got 80 cards. We need to get rid of at least 20 here. I think Spirit-Bound Spy is, yeah, I'm looking at you. We can get rid of that. The Shardcall, maybe take that down to 2 for now. Crackling Rod just may be too slow for the Orc aggro deck. I feel like a lot of my 3-point stuff on turn 3 I kind of want to drop things, which is actually gonna fit my curve a little bit better anyways, I think. So let's get rid of those for now. Shard Call. I need to keep at least 2 Shard Calls in here. I know that.
Yeah, I was going to say at least 2 Shard Calls.
The Repel is fine. Well, we don't really... I think actually I can push these to the reserves later. So I'm going to pull the Repels for now. They're nice. They're not as proactive as some other things. As Crackling Bolt and Burn, they actually have to be attacking for you to use Repel. So sometimes it can be a dead card in your hand. I like Paladin. of Necropolis, but how much does he actually do for our deck?
Yeah.
We've got the Corrupt Harvester is pretty nice. So he's more like a buff for the Corrupt Harvester, so I'm going to take him down to 2. So we need to we got to shoot for our 4-point range. We got the Mistlord. Forgotten Monarch. It actually probably is going to cost us more like 3 or 2, so he's kind of like one of those floating cards I don't really need to worry too much about. I really like the Corrupt Harvester in here. I kind of want to keep that at 4. So I think we're going to take Mistlord down. He's nice, but the problem is we need to be able to play him and then void him in the same turn, which means we need to have 7 resources up. You're not typically going to want to just throw this guy out there if you can't void him in response to removal, because that's going to feel bad. So let's take him down to 2. He's still really nice to have in the deck. 66 cards. The episode is technically over now. I took Lixil down. Maybe the Forgotten Monarch is a 2/2, so that makes it an easy choice there. We'll take him down to 2, even though we're going to shard him in a way where he can pump himself up. Shouldn't be too much of a problem with the heat waves, because you know that just means that we'll have less of him to deal with. And I need 3 more cards. I'm thinking Paladin again, and probably another Mistlord. Just to make this is one of those things where we get down to the end of the episode and we do this so fast, we get it to a playable state, and then we tell you to go out and, oh, the Deep Gaze Disciple, that guy needed to come out a long time ago. We get
take Mistlord down 1.
We did, but we're actually probably gonna, no, that's fine. We need a 2-point card to go now. Probably 1 Crackling Bolt and then pump back up. A 3-point. We need more 3-point cards to get our curve going. More nice. More better. Let's see. Maybe take the Paladin back up and Lixil. I like the Lixil in here for the fixing. And there you go. There's my Necrotic deck. That is it for this episode. So that, yeah, this Squire Speedrun Challenge. So I'm not sure about the shards in here. You're going to need to, again, we just talk about how we need to make sure that we know that you have to play the decks and then feel out where the cards are. But this gets you a basic feel for, we have our curve, we have the nice up and down of the curve, we know we're ending here at 5, we have 23 shards in the deck, but this feels like something where we might want a little bit more shards or less. We're playing things kind of slowly. We've got a lot of shards that are coming into play exhausted. It looks like our major shard here is blood, not diamond, so we may actually make some more choices and some more cuts based on that, because we kind of want diamond to be our primary shard. The champion I'm probably going to pick later. I'll figure out a champion later and post that with the deck, and then I'm also going to go back and build the other necrotic side where it's going to be the shift deck, which would have gone in a completely different direction, but a lot of good options here on the deck. So that's pretty much it. And yeah, let's close out the episode, shall we? Are you ready?
Yep.
Are you ready? All right. So tonight on Deck Built with the Squire, we did RavenHawk, where I had RavenHawk come on the show. He gave us some good news about him starting streaming, some sad news about one of our community members, and so yeah, make sure to go out and support. And I'm really bad for forgetting his name. What was his?
Draft Lord.
Draft Lord. So go out and support Draft Lord. You know, maybe give him a nice comment. Say, you know, if you're of a praying sort, maybe say I'm praying for you or something like that. And we talked about, we did the YouTube giveaway, and so make sure you're posting on those YouTube. I want to see some comments with some in-game names, because, you know, we got cool cards to give away. And we did some news about some of these tournaments that are upcoming. We got the 5 Shards tournament, which is can be a little bit off-putting, and then we had the other tournament, which is the hexagonal tournament. So it has a little bit more limitations, so we aren't just going to be owned by people that have a bunch of 4 of legendaries and rares. And then we did this amazing deck build, which people are calling the Errant Squire speedrun of deck builds, where I had 15 minutes to get rid of 100 and something cards, and I think that I did it. I'm pretty happy. I had to basically just not let RavenHawk talk at all that whole time, so I hope he's okay with that. I hope he doesn't take that as, you know, like he can actually come back and we can build again, and next time I'll let you talk. I promise.
It's an honor to, and I thank you very much for allowing me on your show. It's been a pleasure and an honor.
All right, so go ahead and plug your stuff again. We'll do the outro and then do the giveaway, and then we'll be done.
Okay, you can catch me Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. until about 3 or 4 on the channel RavenHawk Z's.
All right, make sure to check him out. If you're watching on YouTube, the link's going to be down below, so make sure to go over there and check him out. Support him. He's a new streamer, so let's get him like at least 25 followers. Like this week, let's try for 25 followers. I don't know how many followers you have now, but let's try to get him like 25. I think that's reasonable.
I appreciate it.
that's pretty reasonable to ask for. That's pretty much it for tonight. So until next time, this is Aaron Squire signing off, saying God bless your families. Trying to rage too much out there.
God bless you.